Okay, my English teacher friend, so I'm excited to share this one with you. This is probably one of the more clever units I think I've ever thunked up. And let me explain the impetus behind it first. So, most of you know that I run a Facebook group called Teachers Making Better Writers. If you're not a part of that, come join us. And we talk all things writing. So that's the total, foundation for the purpose of our being together. So it's Teachers Making Better Writers. A member of the group reached out to me and said, if I had $1 million, I would pay to open up the lid of your brain to see how you create your lesson plans and your writing workshops, and to get an inside look at your templates and basically how you teach writing from, step one to getting your kids to have such really good voice, rhythm, and flow, and just, control of the language. So I said, you don't need to pay me $1 million, although I would very much like it. You don't need to pay me $1 million. I'll just do it for free. So I sent an email out to people in my Facebook group, and I said, hey, anyone want to get together and make a really good synthesis unit? And here's the reason why. In the Facebook group, we were talking about how it's really difficult to teach synthesis. We're at the end of the academic year. And even for me, I feel like some of my students just never quite grasped it. My AP language guys, they're rock stars. They get it. Even if I teach bad, they learn in spite of me. But my Regents level kids struggled with a little bit. And I think one of the things we do that is to the detriment of our students with regards to synthesis is that we kind of give them like 7 burning, flaming bowling pins and say, juggle all of these sources, like right out of the gate in August and September when we first get our students in our classrooms. We do that. So this unit here is meant for early academic year. Perhaps the very first synthesis unit that you hurl at your students. So this is the work of myself, is my idea, the Tootsie the Missing Cat. But you're going to see the writing samples and a collaborative effort of about, I think, 17 of us put this together. 17 teachers put this together. They wanted to work with me. So the other thing is that the impetus for this came from a missing cat sign that I saw while running. So I'm running on the Erie Canal. I'm in upstate New York, and I saw on the signpost that said "No wake." For the boats not to make a wake in the canal. A poster that looked kind of similar to what you're looking at here in this first slide. It was just a picture of a black cat holding a sign saying missing. And I said, man, that's kind of like how my kids write synthesis. There's just a whole bunch missing there. There was no contact information or anything. So for this synthesis paper, we're trying to get Tootsie home to his owners. And if you want all the source materials, just email me. My email will be at the end of this presentation here. So, all right. Here is the prompt. Alert all concerned parties in the neighborhood. Tootsie's gone missing and his owners are besides themselves and need all hands on deck to bring him home safely. Read the following sources and accompanying material carefully. Write a DM, a direct message to his owners that synthesizes material from at least 3 sources and develops your position about Tootsie's whereabouts and the best strategy to bring him home safely. All right. So the sources are really cool. We got Tootsie's Snapchat. We have his diary, the magazine that he left on his bed. We have articles about catnip, cat diet, cat psychology, manifestation, law of attraction. It's really interesting. So a bunch of teachers and I put all those sources together. So it's very divergent, and your kids can come up with a million different theses. We're not leading them one way or the other with regards to that. So again, we can get you those sources at the end of the presentation. You can just email me. So, as always, one of the things that we talked about, this 17 teachers that I worked with, is this idea that from the essential question, what if we taught composition like Bob Ross teaches painting? And my vantage point when I work with teachers is this: you're the expert writer in the classroom. Provide your students first with templates, and then second, provide them with plenty of exemplars and models. So this writing workshop is what we're going to present to the kids. So we're going to show up to class and say, hey, we're going to show you how to write an introduction. And here's like 6 sample introductions that teachers across the nation helped. And here's example 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. On your mark, get set, go. You do it. Right? That's kind of how Bob Ross taught when he would say, "All right, we're going to paint a beautiful New England autumnal landscape with, New England wood-covered bridge in the center of our canvas." He gets right at the canvas and the easel with his paints and walks us through. He used a heuristic that he called the wet on wet technique, and we're using templates. It's very similar, but even if you are absolutely inept as a painter, you can approximate what Bob Ross is doing. And the same goes for our struggling and emerging writers. If they follow our lead, if we're the expert writer in the classroom, they're going to grow and mature so much over the academic year if we continue to paint with them. It's really crucial that we paint with our students and show them some good writing so that the process gets demystified. So the first question is this: how do I write the introductory paragraph? Well, with my students, I tell them that there's 2 ways. I've invented 2 templates here, the declarative and the inverted. If we declare, we're going to begin with the thesis. Just boom, out of the gate, tell Tootsie's owners where he is. Definitively, succinctly, concisely, precisely, just boom, drop it like it's hot. Here's where Tootsie is. That will be the thesis. From there, it's context and background. You got to flesh it out a little bit. One thing that we studied, the teachers that worked with me, was the origins of my word study academy. I do intensive vocab building exercises with my students from day 1 of the academic year, and I call it my word study academy. And my students know a whole bunch of tier 2 level vocabulary. So by that I mean your average run-of-the-mill SAT level words, right? Tier 2, so good academic diction. So vocab has to be a part of instruction. And then sentence constructs. Ultimately, we want our students to have good voice rhythm and flow. But, emerging writers tend to overuse the short, simple declarative sentence. They go short sentence, short sentence, short sentence. So my students know a trick that Strunk and White gave to me in a book called Write It Right. And it's called Rule Number 18. And Rule Number 18 in Write It Right asserts that there's 12 different ways to construct a single sentence. So my students will know how to make adjective clauses and parenthetical statements and all of that stuff, make choices as writers to get that voice rhythm and flow. So you'll see that going on here. And then the kicker, every introduction that is manipulating the declarative or the inverted thesis is exactly 4 sentences long, no more, no less. So inverted flips it, just puts it upside down on its head. So you can end with the thesis. And in this way, you might begin with a hook, an analogy, context, background. And as you funnel it down towards the 4th sentence, the 4th sentence will become the thesis. That's where you're going to tell Tootsie's owners exactly where he is. You still want to sprinkle in that tier 2, manipulate the syntax with the sentence constructs, exactly 4 sentences long. All right, so let's take a look at a few of these. To meet the demands of the assignment, you're writing a DM to Tootsie's owners. And in the source information, the only contact person we have is Brian. It's in one of his, in one of the sources, Brian leaves a Facebook post. And we know that the only way to get in touch with him is to instant message him through Facebook. So we're going to address it to Brian and write it just like a letter. So 4 sentences, tier 2, sentence constructs. Tell me where Tootsie is. That's the thesis. So here it is. Hi, Brian. Fear not, Tootsie will make his way home to you of his own accord. Like a lot of teens, he's just going through the process of figuring out who he wants to become in life. It's normal, especially at this age, for kids to pull away from their parents and to rebel a little bit. During his absence, Tootsie has done some reflection and realizes that home with you and Barb is where he belongs. Right? Very cool thesis here. So this idea that Tootsie had to go through some stuff. He had to experience life. And now that he's sowed his wild oats, he's just gonna meander on home on his own accord. That he's done so much reflection and growing up that he's learned the errors of his ways, and he's just going to wander on home and show up and don't worry. That's a fantastic thesis, and one can conclude that from the articles. So it's a declarative thesis. Thesis first, context, background. You can see you don't have to overdo the vocab either. This is one of those kind of informal academic tasks, unlike, say, a traditional AP language type paper where you're talking about imminent domain or windmills or something of that nature. It's less academic. So we are going to talk to our kids about the idea that you can keep it colloquial and vernacular, but you got to be formal, but you don't want to be over the top, pedantic, and contrived. So you got to stay in your wheelhouse. So out of the gate, pretty good. Here's another one. Brian and Barb. My strong hunch is that Tootsie will be back at your bedroom window tonight. So you see, answer the question. So, as you probably already know, he can harbor resentment for quite some time, but in his absence from the house, he has had plenty of opportunity to reflect and mature. My advice is this: make some kind of heartfelt amends when he returns tonight, and all should be well going forward. So again, 4 sentences. State the thesis first or state it last. Context, background, tier 2, sentence constructs. So you don't want to get into the sources. Nothing extraneous comes in here. No need to start quoting. Don't need to, rephrase the prompt or regurgitate the prompt. Just nuts, bolts, thesis. That's all it takes. Here's another one. Brian. The fact of the matter is that you raised a delinquent and a heathen with a twisted set of spiritual principles. Whoa, very strong. But we haven't told the owner where Tootsie is. So I'm going to assume that this is going to invert. We're going to have to pay attention to the last sentence here. So we should know Tootsie's whereabouts in the last sentence. In case you're not aware of this, Tootsie thinks that the difference between a left and right Twix can control the strings of the universe. Further, your lack of parenting and oversight has him roaming the streets engaged in one endless act of self-inflicted harm after another. Newsflash. Tootsie isn't coming home because I'm going to adopt him and provide a better life for him than you and Barb ever did or could. Ooh, so someone's just going to just take Tootsie preemptively and raise him on their own. It's pretty cool. So that's one direction the thesis can go. So this is inverted, as you can see, because the thesis comes last. And really good sentence constructs, great voice. I like this in terms of the sense that this is showing its agitation, right? Brian and Barb clearly are not the best owners. They're pretty negligent once you get into the sources, and one can make this conclusion quite naturally. So the tone, the cadence, the vocab fits the thesis very well. So match that with those sentence constructs and the vocab, and you got a really good thesis out of the gate. Exactly 4 sentences, voice, rhythm, flow. It's nice. One more. Mr. Jesper, you and your wife brought this upon yourselves. Energy begets energy, and all of the negativity that you two have brought into the home has resulted in Tootsie manifesting a terrible life for himself. Your self-manufactured dysfunction has spawned every single one of Tootsie's issues. So we haven't answered the question yet, so let's see if it's coming. As a result, I'm stepping in to take over custodial rights so that this cat can live his best self. There it is. So this one's inverted. So thesis first or thesis last, context, background, sentence constructs. Tier 2 every single time, exactly 4 sentences long. So one of the things that you'll see in this too is as the 17 teachers and I were working on this at the end of last week and into the weekend, the use of I. And we're like, well, conventionally, we tell students to avoid using I constructs and you constructs. But for the nature of this, it's kind of okay. Ultimately, we're teaching synthesis, the principles of synthesis and line of reasoning, basic of induction, deductive reasoning. So we said, when you're writing IMs and DMs, you use first person and second person sometimes. So let's keep it real and authentic and not put that contrived, constraint on the kids. So if you don't want your kids using I, then advise them not to use it. I'm fine with them doing it because it's not really the purpose of this. We're teaching synthesis. So, all right. And then one last one. Howdy, neighbor. I guarantee you that if you prepare the most amazingly healthy feast for Tootsie, he'll come running home. Given that he's learned the hard lessons of adhering to a strict and clean diet, and that all he really wants is to feel love from the two of you, he'd come prancing home at the first whiff. Like most teens, Tootsie simply needed to experience life stuff in order to appreciate the two of you. Trust me, he loves with his stomach. So this is straight up declarative. So again, thesis first, sentence constructs, tier 2, focus on that syntax. Keep the voice, the rhythm, and the flow flowing from start to finish. Exactly 4 sentences. So every single one done the same way. So this is a really cool exercise too in terms of getting into conversations about academic, colloquial, vernacular tones, the formalities and the informalities of discourse, right? We're writing in a Facebook format. So match the voice to that discourse medium and rock and roll from there. So that took care of our introductions. Now you imagine if you're doing this assignment with your students and you proceed through the exercise just like I'm doing for you here. I have your students in front of me, and I'm like, we've just seen 6 introductions. Declare, invert. You talk them through it. You break down all the nuance and the wrinkles and the mechanics, and you say, you've seen it 6 times. On your mark, get set, go. Write your introduction. Typically, if a kid has seen something 6 times, man, oh man, they should be able to figure it out, right? So that's what I mean by Bob Rossing your instructions. So if you use the wet on wet technique with Bob Ross 6 times in a row, you watch, 6 Joy of Painting episodes and make 6 paintings, you're going to get pretty good. And the same goes for our students. If we're experts, if we're the expert writer and we're painting along with them, they're going to get okay over the course of the academic year. So the next question is this: how do I write the body paragraphs? And for those that are familiar with my work, you know that we're going to go syllogistically. And all that means is that we're going to go from premise, conclusion. This comes from the Aristotelian tradition, comes from Aristotle. He ran a school called the Lyceum, and the rich aristocratic boys would go there to learn about polemics, oration, debate, and they would wrangle with big, juicy questions. And you might be familiar with like classic text of rhetoric, like Plato's Republic, where the essential question, what is justice? got thrown out. And these philosophical think tankers come to the mic and they drop their definition of justice. And Aristotle noticed that his real good orators, his real good debaters, thunked through their logic syllogistically. They had good lines of reasoning because they adhered to a syllogistic pattern. So I'll give you an example of one. If I were to say premise 1, arsenic is deadly. Premise 2, my dog ate arsenic. Conclusion, my dog is going to die. I mean, we'd all, look at that and say, yeah, that's really logical. That, Aristotle's word was cogent, to be like mathematically computative, bulletproof in your logic. Cogent. And that's what we want from our students in their writing, is for real tight lines of reasoning. So when we are going to use the syllogistic method to create a body paragraph, this is what we're looking for. The first premise is going to be an argument containing a why reason. Up top in the thesis, we just answered the prompt, and we're kind of telling Brian and Barb the whereabouts of Tootsie. Where is he going to be? We don't get into the why reason. We don't spell that out until the first premise of the body paragraph. So we're going to articulate our whys as to why we dropped our thesis in the manner in which we did. The second premise is going to be the textual support, and it's a teeter-totter balance of quoting and paraphrasing. And then the conclusion. So the conclusion of the syllogistic body paragraph, not the conclusion of the essay, is where you link it all back. I tell my students this all the time, that the first premise is a promise. You have to shake hands with that sucker all the way back at the end of the body paragraph. So make sure you're keeping your promise, and that's one way to ensure that you got your line of reasoning fully established. So students ask me this all the time. They say, how many sentences should a syllogistic body paragraph be? And I say you're shooting for 10 sentences, hard cap at 12, right? So we know that we need to infuse our sources. That's going to be in our second premise. But we also know, and especially, the College Board says this of our AP Lang students for FRQ1, your argument must be central. And even if I'm working with just Gen Ed kids, I say that. Has to be central. So the very first 3 sentences is where the argument is going to be. So the first premise is always going to be 3 sentences long. State the why reason. So look where we went here. As you know, one cannot pick their parent at birth. But on the flip side of that, as one gets older, they can handpick the members who will belong to their proverbial tribe. Tootsie, as such, has decided to divorce you and Barb to take residence with me. Oh, all right. So now, one thing I do with my students is say, put that in a promise. What can we anticipate here for the rest of this syllogistic body paragraph? We're going to we should, if we stay cogent, all the reasons why Tootsie is divorcing Barb and Brian and going to move in and get adopted by the speaker, the writer of this. So starting in the 4th sentence is the second premise. And I tell my students, immediately get into your sources. So like, where can you quote or paraphrase your reasons, your justification, your textual support? So look where we go. In his diary, Tootsie states that you got mad at him again because apparently he kicked his kitty litter all over the place. Further, in that very same diary, Tootsie attests that Barb kicked him for filing his nails on her antique dresser. Do you see this? So you're just drawing from the sources. Go get your sources. Get your proof. Get your pudding. Clearly, you and your wife do not understand the cues of distressed feline behavior. When you negligently allow a cat to eat chocolate and caramel at will, you'll get the kitty litter mess because a compound in chocolate called methylethylene is known to be toxic to cats. and most other pets, it'll cause some nasty stomach issues. Source G. So it's very important that we sustain the line of reasoning here. All the quotes, all the paraphrases have to be germane to the promise of the first premise, and that's a perfect quote. And if you're familiar with the sources, you know that Barb and Brian, they let poor Tootsie eat Twix candy bars at will, and he's just a cat. You got dairy products in there, you got caramel, and all the sources. Well, I said many of the sources get into, Tootsie's dietary issues and the ramifications of eating so poorly. All right, so we've pulled from the sources twice now. We got the diary and source G. Let's keep going. Further, between the dairy products and unfettered access to catnip, you're proving yourself to be too unfit, negligent, and incompetent to be a parent to Tootsie. You perceive his nighttime habit of peering at you to be comical and somewhat invasive. Here's the thing. He's doing this because he's anxious, annoyed, and feeling unloved. As source F notes, cats engage in this behavior when they are watching you in disgust and if your cat feels a bit of anxiety. All right, so we're weaving sources nice. And one of the things you'll notice is that our quote transitions are pretty silky smooth. That's something that I like to see with my students, and I have a simple rule for that. I call it the 5-word rule. If a student places a minimum of 5 words in front of the quote and keeps the quote small, it should sound conversational. So again, you can't just drop quotes. You got to analyze. It's this quote, paraphrase, analyze, quote, paraphrase, analyze. 1, 2, 3 punch. Tootsie is trying to manifest a fantastic life for himself, but because of his limiting beliefs that you and Barb carelessly and recklessly instilled, he unwittingly engages in behaviors that preclude him from living his best self. Source I. For example, how can Tootsie feel grateful, not fear the future, and not be full of skepticism living in your household? All right, we got tons of support right here, right? So we got to wrap this up. Plenty of proof. So in the conclusion, we're going to go shake hands with that first premise and echo the thesis, right? Tie it all back, full circle. Things are clearly much too toxic with you calling the shots for Tootsie. So I'm going to legally adopt him. Do you hear that? Echo, echo, echo. Bring it full circle. He will not be returning home, but will instead reside with me going forward so that he can have one heck of a life. And that is an example of one syllogistic body paragraph. So let's go back. Did everything stay connected? Did we keep the promise of the first premise? All the quotes and paraphrasing germane to this promise? Absolutely. So one thing you can do, and you can create any sort of graphic organizer you want for your students, is to keep them organized and make sure that they're quoting with deliberation. I use something called the spider method. So I just have the students make a graphic organizer on their own. I don't even give it to them. So with templates, you don't really need to get too fanciful with graphic organizers. Just have them pre-select their quotes and their paraphrases and sort of the overall encompassing idea of the body paragraph before they actually execute and write, so it stays focused and locked in. So next thing we're going to ask ourselves is this: how do I do the next paragraph? How do I continue? So we're going to take a look at a totally different writers, but for us, we were thinking the 17 teachers that put this together, we were thinking just basic, elementary introduction to synthesis, intro, 2 bodies, and a conclusion, simple 4-paragraph essay. So let's take a look at one more and just see how the template is manipulated again. This is a different writer, though, with a different thesis. It's going to be executed the exact same way. So first 3 sentences set up the why argument. Note how this writer actually lists the reasons. So we're doing this for kids that struggle and have difficulty sustaining the focus of the why reason. So sometimes just listing it with a first and then a second can keep them really organized. It's kind of contrived, but it depends on your age group and the maturity of your writer. So look at this one. Not to be the bearer of bad news, but I'm going out on a limb to tell you that due to your negligence and lack of proper care, the next time you see Tootsie, he'll be 6 feet under. Oh my goodness, this gets grave. All right, so why? Why are we saying this? First, you've not equipped him with the proper parenting to afford him the opportunity to make good life choices. So you just kind of list. Second, it's too late to save him, right? So he's already indoctrinated and inculcated it into his bad life patterns, and he's too far gone, man. So he's gonna kick it. So same thing here, same template. Fourth sentence begins the second premise. Immediately get into your sources. A good parent must closely monitor the outside forces that leave impressions and influence their kids. Yet you and Barb have given Tootsie unfettered access to cat fancy. In his diary, Tootsie suggested that nothing bad ever happens to Megan Thee Stallion because she's all about the right Twix, and that everything bad happens to him because he's crazy for the left Twix. And give your source, source B. Between his delusional fantasies that he can manifest reality and alter the course of the universe, your cat landed himself in the hospital due to his poor decision making. Little may you know, but a small amount of caramel isn't going to do any harm. A large amount, on the other hand, is going to do a cat a lot of harm. So that comes from source F. All right, we know that Tootsie's been eating a lot of Twix candy bars. Cats can't eat that. So again, paraphrase, quote, analyze. 1, 2, 3, punch. Tootsie was at the left Twix factory, in case you didn't know. It is not clear how many Twix he ate, or even if they were right or left, but one thing is clear. You and Barb dropped the ball. Further, it looks like Tootsie is part of the 70% of cats affected by catnip, source H. And again, just weave it all in here. He's not staring at you at night because he feels bonded or abandoned. He's quite simply high. So we got plenty of source here, right? Cap it at 12 sentences, conclude it. Echo the thesis, draw it back to the first premise. Shake hands with that first premise. This is what happens when owners and parents realize that they screwed up by carrying too little too late. Unfortunately, there's no turning back. The harm is done. I love the conclusion there. The harm is done. 4 sentences, declarative, emphatic. You screwed up, cat owners. It's too late. So that is our writing workshop for Tootsie the Missing Cat. So we had fun with that. So that's the compilation of a lot of effort, a lot of work, a lot of teaching, a lot of time. So I like that. It was a lot of fun building that. So in terms of irons that I have in the fire, you guys, probably. I don't know how much you follow me, but I'm presenting at the National Council of Teachers of English in the fall in Anaheim with Tim Freitas and Brandon Abden. So I'll keep you abreast of that. Also going to be doing some professional development projects with the National Writing Project starting soon. So we're cobbling everything together imminently, and then on a monthly basis I do free webinars with Perfection Learning, and I'm writing. So that essential question, what if we taught composition like Bob Ross teaches painting, is the title of my next textbook. And I'm offering some courses. So a Teach It Right 5-week mastermind where I'm working with teachers one-on-one or in small groups to equip them with my templates, my alternative grading methods, my Plato's Plato discussion modality, the Nuance Academy, the Word Study Academy, all of that stuff. So if you're interested in working with me, reach out. I'm making my summer date, my playbook, as we speak. So that's kind of taking shape. So stay tuned, and you can email me for this writing workshop, these slides, at teachingwritingcoach@gmail.com, and we can get you the sources for Tootsie as well. Also got a web page where there's more information about the mastermind and the other irons that I have in the fire, teachinghowtowrite.com. So hopefully you found this to be useful, and I like doing projects like this. This was a lot of fun. So time consuming, but fun and worthwhile. I like the idea of helping teachers get squared away with this and to create engaging content. So be well, and happy teaching and happy writing.